Hey guys, tonight we slip into a world where walls breathe, floors shift with the earth, and roofs vanish before breakfast. You're standing on the Mongolian steppe, your boots sinking into frostbitten grass, as a horizon of low-felt domes quietly undoes itself. One by one, homes are folding like enchanted tents, and families, children, grandmothers, barking dogs, are calmly vanishing into the wind. And just when you're wondering if this is some kind of disappearing act, someone hands you a yak rope and says, "You're helping next." You probably won't survive this kind of life, honestly. Not because it's deadly, though hypothermia is lurking, but because the sheer practicality of it will humble your every IKEA purchase. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I always love knowing where and when you're tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand still as the yurt in front of you sighs, then breathes inward. The walls don't fall, they ripple. Thin, latticewood flexes inward like an accordion being folded for storage. The felt roof panels, once shielding from sub-zero winds, are now neatly peeled and rolled like giant cinnamon rolls. The chimney pole is pulled last, still faintly warm. You're watching an entire household disappear in less time than it takes you to pack a suitcase, and they'll set it back up before sunset, like a pop-up camper with soul. The Mongols didn't call these yurts, by the way. That's a Russian loanword. In Mongolian, it's kur, which simply means home. Not house. Not shelter. Just home. And the way they fold this home, you start to realize, this isn't architecture. It's choreography. Everyone has a part. The mother bundles bedding. The elder ties down folded latticework. A child, maybe 5 years old, runs off to find the picket pin for the horses. You think it's chaos until you blink, and the site is bare. Historians still argue whether the yurt evolved from tent-like dwellings of earlier steppe cultures or arose in parallel across Central Asia. What they do agree on, this was not a primitive structure. The gur was lightweight but strong, circular to withstand gales from any angle, and designed to be dismantled by muscle memory alone. No nails. No screws. Just clever joints, leather straps, and the collective memory of a people who've done this for centuries. You smell smoke in your coat. It's clung there since you entered the last GR. Every home here has a hearth. And every hearth, a story. But for now, you just try not to trip over a yak as someone hands you a rolled felt wall and says, "Don't let it touch the ground, it'll soak in the morning frost." Here's a quirky thing, in some regions, people would whisper apologies to their chairs when packing them up, as if the structure had a spirit. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's just the human instinct to say thank you to a place that kept you alive during a -50-degree windstorm. And as your hands go numb tying down a cartload of furniture, the wind picks up. But the site is almost cleared. One family. 2 carts. 120 minutes. And the steppe stretches blank and wide again, as if no one had ever lived there at all. You're crouched in the grass now, staring at what looks like a pile of discarded ribs. Not from a meal, but from a house. This is the kena, the wooden lattice wall of the gur, and it's not as random as it looks. You lift one section, and it opens like a concertina, each joint bound with leather thongs or rawhide knots. The wood is light but strong, usually willow or birch, steamed and curved to create the natural give needed to handle high winds and wayward elbows. This is the skeleton of the home. The kena forms a circle when unfolded, flexible but enclosed, hugging the people inside without corners. And above it? The crown, the tuno, a perfectly round wooden ring that serves as both a smoke hole and a sky window. You tip your head back and imagine it assembled, a soft shaft of morning sun cutting down like a divine spotlight. Now, watch the uni, these are the long rafters radiating from the crown down to the walls like sunbeams. Each one locks into a notch on the tuno, the other end resting on the kena frame. Together, they hold up the entire roof without a single nail. Just tension. Just balance. You're not sure whether to admire the engineering or be mildly unnerved by how much of your life could hang from a few fitted grooves and a prayer. Historians still debate the precise origins of this skeletal design. Some say it mirrors the circular cosmology of Mongol spirituality, the idea that everything, life, seasons, war, even fate, moves in a loop. Others argue it's just windproof efficiency. Still others claim the geometry was copied by traders who wandered westward with it, folding their own lives along the way. One of the stranger tidbits? There's at least one account that some of the more superstitious herders would only allow certain people, usually men or elders, to touch the crown ring. It was sacred, like a spiritual antenna. You don't toss it around like a frisbee. You bow slightly before you lift it. You speak kindly near it. And you never, ever hang laundry from it, unless you want an ancestral haunting. You uplift a crown ring now. It's surprisingly heavy. A warm, rich color from decades of wood smoke. It has no metal parts, but it creaks like a cello when you rotate it. Once centered above the circular walls, it becomes the sun of this portable galaxy. Every spoke, every line, every bundle of fabric is arranged around that bright wooden circle in the sky. Here's a fun comparison. If a yurt were a pop-up book, the kana would be the folded page, the uni would be the tabs that make it rise, and the crown would be the part that says, "Look through here to see something bigger." The bones of the gur aren't just functional, they're mnemonic. Even children can name every part, how it fits, when to tug, when to loosen. And when the time comes to fold it all away, it doesn't feel like dismantling. It feels like closing a well-read book. You know exactly where the story picks up next time. And you, new to all this, are slowly catching on. The next time you unfold a kana section, it opens in your hands like it's done so thousands of times. Because it has. Not by you, but by them. Your knuckles ache, your knees are muddy, and your lips are dry, but you realize, for a fleeting moment, that you're part of the structure too now. Bent to the wind, balanced by hands, foldable, but still standing. Your toes curl instinctively as you step onto a squishy woolen mat. It's damp, vaguely earthy, and smells a little like wet dog, but warmer. Welcome to the ancient, somewhat squelchy world of felting. You're now part of a Mongol felting circle. Not metaphorically. You're literally circling with others, trampling layers of raw sheep wool underfoot to create the walls, roofs, and floors of homes that must fold and unfold again and again. Here's how it works. Raw wool is cleaned, then laid in overlapping sheets, horizontal, vertical, diagonal. It's soaked with warm water, rolled tightly around a rod, and then stomped. Repeatedly. For hours. Sometimes accompanied by singing, or just gritted teeth. This isn't craft time, it's a cardio workout with cultural gravitas. And somehow, this chaotic mashing yields sheets of felt that are windproof, waterproof-ish, and practically fire-resistant. Science would call it a combination of friction, heat, and moisture activating the scales on the wool fibers. But Mongols just call it necessary. You glance up and see someone's grandmother stomping with serene intensity while chatting about goat milk prices. She's been felting since before you were born, and her soles are probably smoother than your phone screen. Historians still argue whether felting was independently developed in Central Asia or borrowed from older Persian methods. What's not debated, the Mongols perfected it. Felt was used for everything: walls, beds, bags, clothing, even shoes. There's an old tale that a Khan once had a yurt so massive that 40 sheets of felt had to be stitched to make the roof. They say you could hear it groan in the wind like a sleeping giant. And then there's the quirky part. Some herders believed certain types of wool had better behavior. The wool from white sheep was often favored for roof felts, not just for sun reflection but for purity. Black wool? Usually for floor mats or storage. There's even folklore suggesting that if you use the wrong type of felt, the spirits of the land might get irritated and make your livestock wander. Petty spirits, apparently. Now you're dragging a rolled-up felt sheet with two others, lifting it onto the wooden frame like a giant sushi roll of insulation. It flops over the roof rafters, edges aligned just so. Another one comes next, overlapping slightly. Then leather straps lash it all tight. Suddenly, that weird muddy sheet you were stomping hours ago is now keeping wind out and warmth in. And it only smells faintly of damp sheep. And let's talk about felt color. Some families dyed their felts with natural tints, reds from madder roots, yellows from onion skins, browns from crushed bark. Not just for beauty, but to signal things: social status, region, even marital availability. Imagine walking past someone's gur and clocking their dating status based on roof hue. Better than dating apps, probably. Eventually, someone hands you a bowl of arag, fermented mare's milk, fizzy and faintly sour, like if yogurt and beer had a wild night. You sip politely. It hits your empty stomach like a slap and a hug at the same time. Around you, the wind is picking up, but the felt walls hold. The yurt stands. Warm, firm, breathing just a little with every gust. And all around, more chairs are taking shape, like a village blooming from the ground. You think about all the effort poured into a material that's meant to be invisible once it's part of the structure. No one praises the felt. No one polishes it. But without it, every night here would be a test of survival. It's the humble hero, underfoot, overhead, unassuming. And tonight, as you lean back against a freshly felted wall, you realize you're warmer than you've been all day. The wind still howls outside. But you're wrapped in wool that's been stomped by generations. You're part of the herd now. Oh, you sit near the center of the gur now, legs folded, eyes drawn upward. Above you, the round wooden crown, the tonneau, frames a perfect disk of sky. Smoke curls lazily through the opening, spiraling like a spirit being released. This is the heart of the home. Not just metaphorically. Literally. The hearth sits dead center, and every single thing in this space is arranged around it with near ritual precision. A kettle simmers gently over the fire, sending waves of salted steam into your nose. It's milk tea, laced with yak butter and sometimes, if the host is feeling generous, a pinch of toasted millet. It doesn't taste like home. But it tastes like someone else's home, and for now, that's comforting. In Mongol tradition, the hearth isn't just for cooking, it's sacred. You don't step over it. You don't spit near it. You definitely don't poke at it unless you're the designated fire master or happen to be a respected elder with a wrinkled smile and stories that could melt permafrost. The hearth links earth and sky. From it rises smoke to the heavens, to it falls blessings, luck, and sometimes the occasional wayward ember that'll scorch your socks if you're not careful. Historians still debate the deeper cosmology of the Mongol hearth. Some view it purely as a practical center of warmth and food. Others see it as a direct echo of older nomadic fire cults, an ever-burning reminder of life's fragility and resilience. Some scholars even argue that Mongol social hierarchy was reflected in how far one sat from the fire, closer for elders, further for youngers, sideways for awkward guests. Here's the quirky bit. Some herders believe that if the fire crackles too much, someone in the family is lying. And if it dies unexpectedly, a bad omen. So yes, your ability to maintain a flame can determine whether people trust your character. You look around. To your left, the family altar sits just beyond the fire, usually facing south. The entrance of the gur traditionally opens southward to welcome the sun and avoid the harshest northern winds. Above the altar are family portraits, sacred scarves called kadog, and sometimes small Buddhist icons or ancient bones wrapped in cloth. To the right, household tools hang neatly, everything from ladles to a battered Nokia phone clipped to a string. Every placement in the gur has a logic. Men's items, like saddles and hunting gear, typically rest on the west side. Women's tools, cooking pots, sewing kits, milk buckets, on the east. Children sleep near the north wall. The fire guards the center. It's not random. It's spatial harmony, steppe style. You scoot a bit closer to the flames, listening to the low hum of voices and occasional snore from a nearby dog. The walls creak softly as wind brushes against the felt. This structure isn't sealed shut, it breathes. And that breath carries stories. You hear one now. The elder across from you is speaking about a time when the snow came early, and only those who kept their hearth lit survived the storm. He pauses to sip tea, then throws a twist of dried dung into the flames. It flares briefly, hot and blue. Yes, dung. Fuel of choice in the treeless steppe. Goat, cow, horse, each burns differently, and yes, everyone has an opinion. Horse dung? Hotter, faster. Cow dung? Steadier, longer. Goat dung? Well, let's just say it's the backup plan. A toddler toddles in, barefoot despite the chill, and drops a small pebble in the ash. Everyone chuckles. Someone mutters, he's making an offering. Whether it's superstition or just an adorable accident, no one moves the pebble. And that's the magic of the hearth. It's domestic, mystical, and weirdly democratic. Everyone gathers here. No corners to hide in. No separate rooms to sulk off to. You live here together, you warm here together, and if the wind howls hard enough, you hope together. Tonight, as the fire pops and a new log catches flame, you realize this is more than a practical warmth. It's ritual. It's rhythm. It's the center of the world. At least, for the length of this cold, quiet night. The sun hasn't even touched the top of the hills yet, and already the entire camp is buzzing. You blink sleep from your eyes, step outside, and nearly trip over a goat wearing what you swear is a smug expression. Around you, a dozen chairs are being systematically taken apart, not in panic, but with the practiced ease of people who've done this since they were toddlers. By the time your brain catches up to the moment, half the village has already vanished. This isn't just a move. It's a performance. A ritual. A family-level migration that happens in sync with grass, wind, and instinct. The Mongols didn't pack for vacation. They packed to survive. And when they packed everything: home, hearth, heirlooms, even the horse who bit your sleeve earlier. Each item has its place, and the entire process unfolds like a reverse birth, from solid, stable home back into bundles, ropes, wheels. Historians still puzzle over the consistency of this process. Across centuries, even regions, the steppes rarely changed. The gur breaks down into the same 5 major parts: lattice walls, roof poles, crown ring, felt layers, and guy ropes. And every family member has their task. There's no need for shouting. Everyone just knows. It's the kind of logistical genius that would make military engineers weep with envy. You spot a grandmother tying up cooking pots in a canvas bag with one hand while scolding a dog with the other. A teenager is rolling up bedding, feet planted, movements tight and efficient. Nearby, someone is lashing the poles to a wooden cart that squeaks like an old accordion. These carts, called kuren, are designed to bear heavy loads and survive terrain that would make your SUV cry. Here's something quirky. Some Mongol families used to believe that if the first item packed was the felt roof, the journey would be smooth. If the crown ring went first, they might face delays. Superstition? Maybe. But try questioning that belief when your oxen suddenly refuse to move, or a storm rolls in sideways. You help fold a massive felt wall. It takes 4 people. The wool resists at first, dense and springy, but then gives in like a tired old friend. It's bound tightly, hoisted onto the cart, and covered with a hide to protect it from rain. The entire dismantled gur now fits onto one cart. It's a cube of survival, ready to roll. And here's a sensory thing you won't forget: the smell. The mix of felt, with smoke, dried milk, sweat, and leather. It's not unpleasant. It's lived in. Like if a life had a scent. Every time you inhale it, something inside you calms. Like your nose is telling your brain, this is real. This is durable. You're okay. Once the packing is done, there's a pause. Not long. Just long enough for a glance back at the flattened grass where the gur once stood. Some folks bow slightly. Others just nod. The site isn't abandoned, it's respected. Because it held you. Because it will hold someone else soon. The family mounts up. Carts creak into motion. Children scramble onto ponies. Dogs trot alongside like bouncing punctuation marks. And then they're off. Toward greener pasture, toward a river that hasn't frozen yet, toward a future always just a little further ahead. You ride with them, your cart jostling over uneven ground. In the distance, another camp is being packed. And another. It's like a slow-motion dance across the steppe, every move deliberate, every bundle loaded with the weight of tradition. And as you bounce along, you think about how most people uproot their lives in moments of crisis. But here, they do it like breathing. Moving isn't an emergency. It's a rhythm. A season. A step in the great ongoing circle of grass, wind, sky, and home. You're clinging to the thick mane of a pony that's clearly unimpressed by your presence. Your knees ache. Your back protests. Your pride has already fallen off somewhere on the trail, probably near the stream where you almost face-planted. But you're still riding. Because here, riding isn't a hobby, it's a life skill acquired somewhere between crawling and walking. Mongol horsemanship is legendary, and you're beginning to understand why. These horses aren't tall, glossy show creatures. They're compact, sturdy, slightly scruffy beasts with the horsepower of a tank and the patience of a sleep-deprived parrot. Mongols didn't invent horseback riding, but they arguably perfected it. Their children ride before they're tall enough to see over the saddle. And saddles? Often optional. You pass a child, maybe 5, galloping bareback, legs flapping, arms raised in delight. Behind him trots a baby goat. You suddenly feel like the least agile mammal on the steppe. Historians still debate just how central horses were to the Mongol Empire's expansion. Some argue it was the mobility. Troops could cover 100 miles in a day. Others point to logistics. Mongol warriors often traveled with 3 or 4 spare horses, switching mounts like modern cyclists shift gears. And there's a theory that without fermented mare's milk and dried meat tucked into saddlebags, Genghis Khan's army would have starved halfway across the Gobi. But it wasn't just battle tactics. Horses were the connective tissue of daily life. Need to check on a cousin 20 miles away? Saddle up. Lost your herd? Saddle up. Feeling sad? Saddle up and sing to the wind. There are entire folk songs dedicated to favorite horses, mourning their loss like fallen comrades. Mongol riders didn't just use horses, they formed relationships with them that bordered on spiritual. Now here's a fun little oddity. Traditional Mongol riding technique involves standing slightly in the stirrups, not sitting deep. It softens the impact, keeps your knees loose, and makes your posture weirdly graceful. You try it. Your thighs scream. The pony sighs. You pass a herder singing to his horse, low, rhythmic, hypnotic. Not words, just a tone. Mongol horse songs aren't lullabies, they're conversations. Riders sing to calm anxious foals, coax tired mounts, or simply share the mood of the journey. Imagine telling your Uber driver how you feel through interpretive humming. The saddle itself is another artifact of brilliance. High wooden pommel in front, deep seat in the back, minimal padding. It's not comfy by Western standards, but it locks you into place. There's no room to slouch when you're barreling down a slope at full speed chasing an escaped goat. Not that that's happened to you. Yet, you catch up to the caravan again. Some riders are dismounted, walking beside their horses to give them a break. Others ride side saddle or backwards, because apparently, why not? Everyone's moving at their own pace, but somehow they all stay together. Like a flock of birds, scattered yet synchronized. One rider waves you down and points to your reins, which you're holding like spaghetti. They show you how to loop them with 3 fingers, how to steer with your knees, how to whisper encouragement without sounding desperate. You try. The horse looks back at you, unimpressed but tolerant. Progress. Eventually, you stop for a rest. The horses are hobbled, legs loosely tied so they can graze but not run. The wind picks up. Someone hands you a chunk of dried cheese so hard it could double as a weapon. You chew. And chew. It tastes like chalk soaked in goat memories. But it fills your belly. You're learning. Slowly. Uncomfortably. And with a growing respect for the animals carrying this entire way of life on their weary, woolly backs. As the sun dips behind the hills and your pony finally accepts you're not a threat, you feel a strange sort of calm. Out here, trust is built hoof step by hoof step. You may not ride like a Mongol yet, but for today, you rode. And that counts. You're chewing something tough, salty, and suspiciously fibrous. It could be dried meat. It could be a slice of leather that wandered into the food bag. Either way, your jaw is getting a workout, and nobody around you seems concerned. Welcome to lunch on the gallop, the Mongol version of fast food, emphasis on fast. Meals here aren't served with fanfare. They're grabbed, torn, chewed, and chased with tea while riding, walking, or tying down a stubborn goat. The most common staple? Borts, strips of meat, usually mutton or beef, sliced thin and dried in the wind until they resemble edible bookmarks. Stored in sacks or tied in bundles, it lasts for months and needs no refrigeration. You just tear off a piece, suck on it like a protein lollipop, and hope your teeth don't revolt. Historians agree that Borts was a logistical masterpiece. During military campaigns, it allowed Genghis Khan's armies to travel light and far without needing constant resupply. Some chronicles even describe warriors grating it into powder and dissolving it in boiling water for a quick meat tea. It wasn't gourmet, but it kept you moving. And for nomads, movement is everything. You now sip from a skin flask handed to you with a grin. It's Arag again, fermented mare's milk, bubbling faintly, tangy with a kick. It's not for the faint of stomach, but it's refreshing, oddly addictive, and full of probiotics, or so you're told. Mongols produce it by letting fresh milk churn inside leather sacks that are strapped to saddles. Every gallop, every jolt, shakes the milk into a fizzy, low-alcohol beverage. Your steed's afternoon jog has, quite literally, brewed your beverage. Quirky detail? Families sometimes name their Arag sacks, especially if they're lucky ones that consistently produce a good batch. There are old jokes about jealous neighbors borrowing a fertile sack under suspiciously friendly pretenses. Yes, that's a thing. You munch on dried curds next, called erul, rock hard, mouth-puckering, and made by draining yogurt and sun-drying the solids. It's what happens when yogurt gives up on being soft and decides to live forever. Some are plain, others flavored with berries or sugar, depending on the mood of the cook. Children suck on them like sour candy. Your tongue, however, begs for mercy. Historians still argue whether the Mongol diet was nutritionally balanced or simply survivalist brilliance. Meat, milk, fat, and salt formed the core. Fruits and vegetables, optional extras, when in season, when nearby, when the gods were feeling generous. But the diet gave strength. These were people who could ride from dawn until dusk, sleep in snow, and wake ready to chase wolves off their sheep. Lunch breaks are short. The sun is high, the path long, and the herd restless. So you pack up. The air ag is sealed, the board's tucked into your saddlebag, and the goats, unlike you, seem satisfied with licking rocks and head-butting each other. Back on horseback, you ride with a strange kind of fullness. Not the heavy, nap-inducing fullness of a three-course meal, but the sturdy, no-nonsense energy of a body that's been given just enough to keep going. Someone ahead passes around a warm dumpling, booze, filled with meat and onion, steamed in a makeshift pot balanced over a fire. You take a bite, feel the grease coat your tongue, and for a moment, all is forgiven. Even the erul. Even the borts. The caravan picks up pace again. The felt-wrapped carts roll ahead. You bounce in your saddle, your stomach oddly content, your hands sticky with cheese, and your heart, well, your heart is starting to feel like it belongs out here. Because on the steppe, lunch isn't a pause. It's a continuation. A bite between hoofbeats. A reminder that even when you move through wind and dust, you carry your strength, chewed, fermented, folded, right there in your pack. You duck into a gur just as a gust of wind tries to steal your hat. Inside, the mood is hushed but alert. A man in embroidered robes pours salty tea into shallow bowls. His expression is unreadable. Across from him, a visitor with a weather-worn face sits cross-legged, unmoving. Around the perimeter, others hover, wives, sons, perhaps bodyguards cleverly disguised as cousins. You've just wandered into one of the most important institutions of Mongol life, tent diplomacy. Forget marble halls and polished wood conference tables. Here, alliances are forged over fermented milk and the rustle of felt walls. Deals are made on rugs, decisions sealed with a nod, a shared drink, and maybe a gift horse or two. Mongol society didn't need castles. They had yurts, and inside these soft, portable domes, some of the hardest negotiations in steppe history took place. Historians still debate the extent of political power exercised within the humble GER. Was it purely domestic space? Or was it a miniature court, throne room, and war council all rolled into one? Evidence from travel accounts and ancient records suggests the latter. Even Genghis Khan himself conducted state affairs from his mobile court, a grand yurt called the Golden Tent, which could be packed onto ox carts and moved from one end of his empire to the other. You sip the tea offered to you, salty, warm, somehow reassuring. Tea isn't just a beverage here. It's a symbol. Sharing it is a gesture of peace. A form of hospitality that also happens to double as subtle psychological warfare. Because once you accept the bowl, you've entered a contract of sorts, to listen, to consider, to remain respectful. Spitting it out? Grounds for being shown the flap. A quirky custom? If you're invited into a gur and decline tea 3 times before accepting, you're signaling deep respect. Too eager, and you might seem greedy. Too resistant, and you could be mistaken for rude. It's a balancing act, like the social equivalent of riding a pony through a minefield. You glance around. The space is arranged carefully. The western side, the male side, is where the guest sits. It's also where weapons might be hung, out of reach but in view. The eastern side is for the women, where food is prepared, where children nap. The rear of the gur, the place of honor, often holds the family altar or host, facing the door like a guardian of both home and conversation. Some negotiations here are simple, trading livestock, settling grazing rights, arranging marriages. Others are complex, planning raids, dividing pastureland, discussing loyalty to a khan. Mongol diplomacy wasn't always subtle. Sometimes it involved veiled threats and very visible bows. But the setting remained the same, round, firelit, and thick with the scent of wool, milk, and intention. There's even an old tale that a marriage proposal once hinged on a bowl of yogurt. If the girl accepted and drank, the match was made. If she spilled it accidentally, the suitor left with his pride intact and his yurt still upright. Now, the visitor speaks. His voice is calm, words deliberate. You don't understand the language, but the tone tells you everything. He's asking for something. Not demanding, inviting. The host nods slowly, then reaches for a carved wooden chest. Inside? Probably contracts. Or coins. Or, let's be real, more tea. You sit quietly, absorbing the moment. The felt walls flutter gently, absorbing tension. No one raises their voice. No one storms out. Disagreements, when they arise, are folded as neatly as the gur itself. When the meeting ends, the guest bows, stands, and exits into the wind. No papers signed. No hands shaken. But something definite just happened. You feel it. The air inside the gur is lighter now, but charged. A decision has been made. A balance struck. A future nudged forward. And as you step out again, blinking against the sun, you realize something profound. Diplomacy doesn't need a palace. It just needs a roof, a fire, and people willing to sit cross-legged long enough to share a bowl of salty tea. The wind kicks up again, and a hush seems to fall over the camp. Someone ties a thin blue scarf to a tall pole outside their GR. It flutters like a flame against the wide, empty sky. This isn't decoration, it's a kadog, a sacred offering. A symbol of sky, spirit, and reverence. And as you stare up at it, something inside you stills. Because here in the vast steppe, where land touches sky with nothing in between, spirituality doesn't live in temples. It lives in the wind. The Mongols were never strictly one religion people. Before Buddhism took root, they worshipped the eternal blue sky, Tingri. It wasn't a god in the human sense, but more of a vast, cosmic force. Always watching. Always judging. A sky so eternal it made even great khans feel small. Tingri saw your honor, your loyalty, your ability to keep your herd alive during a late spring blizzard. And if you failed? Well, the sky didn't punish you. It just didn't protect you next time. You walk past a shaman's tent now, half hidden among the herd. A string of bones dangles from the doorway, horse teeth, bird claws, polished stones. Inside, the scent of burned juniper clings to the air. Shamans, or Bu, were spiritual guides, healers, and interpreters of the unseen. When someone was sick, confused, or cursed, the shaman didn't prescribe medicine. They drummed. They chanted. They danced until their spirit left their body and returned with an answer. Historians still argue over how much influence shamans had in political decisions. Some say Genghis Khan himself consulted shamans before battles. Others claim that as Buddhism spread, shamanism faded into private corners. But even now, in modern Mongolia, shamanic traditions have surged back, fueled by a longing for ancestral connection that temples can't always satisfy. Here's an eerie little custom. When a Mongol family moved, they sometimes carried a bundle of ancestral bones wrapped in felt. Not for macabre reasons, but for continuity. The bones connected them to their lineage. And they believed if those bones weren't honored, kept clean, protected from harm, misfortune would follow. Imagine packing up grandma's femur before hitting the road. You stop at a small pile of stones on a hillside. It's an ovu, a sacred cairn. Travelers add a rock, tie a scarf, and circle it 3 times clockwise, sometimes on foot, sometimes on horseback. Offerings include vodka, money, candy, and occasionally old SIM cards, because apparently, the gods are up to date. The idea? To ask for safe passage, or to thank the spirits of the land for not tripping your horse earlier. A quirky belief? If a traveler skips the over ritual, their journey might be cursed with bad weather or stubborn camels. You, not being entirely reckless, add your own pebble. Just in case. Later, as dusk falls, you join a quiet ritual inside a GR. The elder lights incense and murmurs a prayer. It's not dramatic, just intimate. A soft honoring of the day. The room grows still. The children fidget less. Even the goats outside seem quieter. And you realize, Mongol spirituality isn't loud. It doesn't demand temples, golden idols, or hymns. It asks for attention, for breath, for small gestures towards something bigger. You step back out into the twilight. The blue scarf still flutters. The wind is cooler now, but you feel warmer. Because here, under the eternal sky, belief isn't a performance. It's a rhythm, a whisper, a quiet agreement between earth, wind, and heart. You're clutching a corner of felt like it's a lifeline, because the wind just hit with the ferocity of a mother scolding a muddy child. The steppe, so gentle this morning, has turned moody. The clouds hang low and fast, and the temperature has dropped like a jealous ox. But inside the gur, it's still warm, dry, peaceful, almost smug, because what you're standing in is one of the most cleverly engineered homes on Earth, a shelter so adaptable it laughs in the face of weather apps. The felt exterior isn't just for show. It's layered, thick, and slightly breathable, enough to trap heat when you need it, or let moisture escape before everything smells like a wet goat convention. Some families stack 2 or even 3 layers of felt in winter, pressing them tight and lashing them with leather cords. In summer, a few clever tugs and folds turn the yurt into something airier, shaded, and, if not cool, at least survivable. Historians agree the gur was a masterclass in climate control long before HVAC existed. Designed for extremes, it could handle -40°C winters and +40°C summers with barely a sneeze. No windows. No vents. Just the tonneau, the crown ring, acting as both chimney and sunroof. You adjust it with a long pole from inside, open it a little to vent smoke, or close it tight to keep warmth from slipping out like a thief in the night. And here's a fun, slightly strange detail. During winter, some families actually insulate their chairs with animal skins tucked between the felt and the frame: fox, wolf, even marmot. One particularly eccentric legend claims a shaman once lined his yurt with the hides of 99 black goats to ward off winter demons. Probably kept the wind out, too. The structure itself is circular for a reason. With no sharp corners, the wind has nothing to slam into, it flows over and around. The uni-poles spread the weight evenly, and because the frame flexes slightly, it can absorb sudden gusts without collapsing. Compare that to your average suburban gazebo and weep. Inside, the floor might be dirt, wood, or layered carpets. It's not luxurious, but it insulates surprisingly well. Mongols often spread rugs made of sheep wool or woven yak hair, textiles that double as insulation and decor. And if the wind howls too much, you just throw another felt panel on the wall and carry on drinking your salty tea in perfect comfort. Scholars still debate the origin of these insulation techniques. Some trace them to earlier nomadic tribes in the Altai or Siberian regions. Others argue they were developed through sheer generational trial and error. After all, nothing teaches you how to windproof a tent faster than sleeping through a blizzard with snow creeping up your nose. You help tighten the wall ropes now. The wind pulls like a toddler with something to prove. But the felt holds. The kinna frame bends slightly, like it's shrugging off the effort. The crown ring rattles once, then settles. Inside, the fire crackles. The tea steams. And life continues like the weather's just a polite suggestion. Someone nudges you toward a small trapdoor near the floor. You lift it, it's a ventilation flap. In summer, it's propped open to allow airflow. In winter, sealed tight. Simple. Effective. No cords, no motors, no troubleshooting forums. And here's the best part, if the weather gets really bad, like horse frozen to the ground bad, you can pack the whole gur tighter. Drop the roof lower. Pull on extra ropes. Some families even half-bury the base in snow to anchor it. You're not hiding from the elements. You're working with them. By nightfall, the storm is full-blown. Snow whips sideways. Your eyelashes freeze a little when you step outside to pee. But the yurt glows from within like a soft lantern. And when you duck back inside, shedding cold like a coat, it welcomes you with warmth, light, and the faint scent of dumplings. Because out here, on the edge of nowhere, in a shelter made of sticks and wool and stubborn hope, the storm has nothing on you. You're huddled by the fire now, half asleep and entirely full of stew, when a voice begins to speak, softly, slowly, in that storytelling tone that signals everyone else to quiet down. It's an elder, face creased like a river map, eyes glinting with mischief. He's telling the story of a boy named Temujin. You know him better as Genghis Khan. But before the titles, before the terror, before the empire, he was just a hungry, cold child, born in a felt yurt like the one you're sitting in. It's hard to picture the world shaker as a barefoot kid chasing rats for food. But that's how he started. His father was poisoned. His tribe abandoned him. His family lived on scraps and river water. And the yurt, thin-walled, barely patched, standing against snowstorms, was the one constant shelter in a life that had none. Historians still argue over just how grim Temujin's early years were. Some say the stories are mythologized, made darker for dramatic effect. Others believe they were every bit as brutal as described, harsh enough to forge a will strong enough to bend the world. Either way, one thing's certain: his early life in Agur taught him survival, community, and mobility. When you lose everything and still manage to rebuild a home each time, you learn what really matters. And you learn that empires, like yurts, are meant to be portable. Here's a quirky detail: Temujin's mother reportedly trained her sons to shoot arrows while standing on horseback before they could shave. She also taught them loyalty, the importance of keeping promises, and never wasting food, not even the grisly bits. It's said she could get a deer, patch a yurt, and recite lineage in the same breath. Genghis Khan didn't invent strength. He inherited it. The elder's story moves on. Temujin unites rival clans, rises through betrayal and alliance, and eventually declares himself Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. But even at the height of power, he doesn't move into a palace. He lives in a GR. A bigger one, yes. More elaborately decorated. But still felt walled, round, and mobile. His court was a caravan. His throne, a cushion. His roof, the same circular sky as yours. Some believe this was political, to show he remained a man of the people, tied to the nomadic heart of Mongolia. Others say it was personal. He simply didn't want to be tied down. A palace can be stormed. Agur? Fold it up, ride out. Try and catch the wind. You now look around your own felt cocoon with new eyes. The same smoke hole. The same fire pit. Maybe the same arrangement of rugs and buckets. Sure, your stew was mild and your pawnee passive-aggressive, but the bones of this life haven't changed much since Genghis sat cross-legged beside his generals and planned the conquest of half the known world. And here's something almost poetic: his empire spread on horseback, not by building cities but by adapting to them. Mongol rulers didn't destroy cultures wholesale. They co-opted engineers, absorbed languages, learned local rituals. But they always returned to the yurt. Even in far-flung parts of Persia or China, they would set up their camps outside city walls, sleeping under felt while emissaries slept behind stone. You stretch your legs, letting the heat of the hearth warm your souls. The elder finishes the tale with a grin, as if to say, you didn't expect bedtime to include world domination, did you? The kids in the gur clap quietly. Someone passes around dumplings. The storm outside hums, but the felt walls hold. And you think, it makes sense. That the greatest conqueror the world has ever known came from a home that could be taken down and rebuilt in a single morning. That a boy who grew up chasing foxes across frozen hills could eventually send messages from Korea to Hungary, on horseback, across deserts, rivers, and battlefields, all without forgetting how to roll a felt roof. Because empires fall. Palaces crumble. But the gur? It folds. It waits. It rides again. You wake to a murmur outside, low voices, soft footfalls, the clank of metal. It's still dark, but something's stirring. You slip out of the gur, squinting at the glow of oil lamps casting long shadows over a cluster of jars arranged in a tight circle. In the center, a larger yurt stands taller than the rest, its roof supported by thick poles and draped with decorated felt. This isn't a regular family home. It's a war tent. And inside, decisions are being made that could send entire armies galloping by sunrise. The Mongols weren't just nomads. They were master strategists. And their brilliance wasn't limited to open battlefields. It began here, in round rooms filled with maps scratched into sand, whispered orders, and plans hatched over bowls of milk tea. You move quietly, not wanting to intrude. But no one stops you. This is a place of focus, not spectacle. Inside the command gur, men sit in a circle, no one above or below. Rank is honored, yes, but the Mongol command system was built for flexibility. Generals could lead without being royalty. Scouts might be 17 and brilliant. Loyalty mattered more than birth. And mobility, always mobility, was king. Historians still debate the precise mechanics of these mobile war councils. Some records suggest orders were delivered via carved wooden tablets. Others describe colored banners fluttering from horsemen galloping ahead. What's clear is that the heart of the Mongol army beat inside yurts like this, temporary, adaptable, but absolutely central. You crouch in a corner, watching. The men speak in short bursts, nodding, gesturing with curved fingers. A bowl of arag is passed around, not celebratory, but ritualistic. The general's finger draws circles in the dust. A circle for the camp. Lines for the scouts. A thumbprint for the river crossing. It's not formal strategy. It's lived experience made visual. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Mongol commanders used sheep ankle bones, shagai, as tactical pieces, casting them onto cloth to simulate enemy movement, terrain changes, even omens. Were they strategizing or divining? Maybe both. When your army travels light, your tools must do double duty. The fire in the center is low, just embers. Shadows flicker across the interior as plans solidify. These aren't bombastic speeches or pounding fists. The Mongol way is silence, precision, execution. Plans are decided, not debated. And then? They move. Fast. Outside, scouts mount horses, vanishing into the dark. A rider adjusts his bowstring. Another tests the sharpness of a blade by trimming a lock of hair. There's no shouting. No drums. Just motion, smooth, silent, deliberate. You remember reading somewhere that Mongol messengers could cover 200 miles in a day using a relay system of fresh horses stationed across the steppe. They carried messages in braided cords or knotted scarves, each color and twist meaning something different. It was a postal service before Europe had sidewalks. And unlike most medieval armies, the Mongols didn't bog themselves down with wagons or long supply lines. Everything they needed, they carried. Even cooking pots were designed to hang from saddles, clanging softly like distant thunder as they rode. You watch as a young boy brings water to one of the generals, his eyes wide with pride. He's learning, not just how to ride or shoot, but how to think in movement, in circles, in silence. He folds the felt flap of the tent closed without needing to be told. This is his classroom. His textbook, the sky. His desk, the saddle. As dawn creeps over the horizon, the war tent begins to fold. Not because the meeting is over, but because it's already moving. The orders are clear. The strategy set. And like everything else in this world, the heart of the army is never still for long. You help coil a rope, pack a rolled map, lift a wooden pole still warm from the fire. There's no parade, no fanfare. Just departure. Swift, synchronized, and nearly silent. And as you ride out with the others, the battlefield's still hidden over the ridge, you marvel at how the soft walls of a yurt could contain so much power. Not from shouting, but from knowing exactly when to move, and how to fold a plan as efficiently as a home. You nearly trip over a goat. Again. But this time it's understandable, because you're weaving between animals like you're crossing a four-legged intersection during rush hour. To your left, a camel glares at nothing in particular. To your right, a sheep attempts to chew on your boot. And directly ahead, a small herd of shaggy yaks blocks your path like a living wall of size. Welcome to the unofficial architecture team of the Mongolian yurt, the animals. If you thought yurts were built by people alone, think again. Every part of a traditional gur is touched, shaped, or outright donated by the creatures around you. The walls? Bound with rawhide strips. The felt? Pressed from sheep wool. The ropes? Twisted from horsehair. Even the milking your tea owes itself to the four-legged neighbors who trudge patiently from pasture to pasture with less complaint than your average suitcase. Historians are in firm agreement about one thing: Mongol life was animal-dependent to the point of symbiosis. 5 core animals formed the backbone of nomadic survival: horses, sheep, goats, yaks, and camels. Each offered something: transport, milk, wool, hide, companionship, and in some cases, dinner. You start with the sheep and goats. They graze together, almost inseparable, often herded by the same slightly annoyed dog. Sheep provide most of the wool used in felting. Their fleece is coarse, full of lanolin, and perfect for thick, weatherproof layers. Goats? Their cashmere is luxurious, but more often, they're kept for milk and meat. The quirky part? Goats are escape artists. Mongol children learn early how to tie a tether with just enough tension to discourage breakouts without triggering goat-level theatrics. Then there are the yaks, massive, moody, and essential. Their dung fuels the fire. Their hair becomes rope. Their milk, richer than cows, churns into butter for tea or is dried into pungent yellow bricks that might, if you're lucky, soften in soup. Try biting into one dry, it's like chewing a fossil. Camels, meanwhile, are the ships of this chilly sea. The Bactrian camel, with its 2 humps and perpetual look of judgment, thrives in freezing temperatures that would humble a polar bear. Their hair is spun into yarn. Their humps store fat that sustains them across desolate expanses. And yes, they spit. Not often, but with excellent aim. And of course, the horse, the crowned king of all Mongol animals. We've already ridden them, sung to them, and probably embarrassed ourselves trying to mount one. But it's worth repeating, without the horse, none of this would work. Not the herding, not the migrating, not the empire. Horses are how you move a yurt, chase down a lost goat, deliver a letter, or flee from awkward family gatherings. Here's a quirky belief: it's considered unlucky to step over a rope made of horsehair. Why? Because that rope might one day hold up a yurt wall, or a saddle girth, or even your pants. Disrespect it, and the animals might get the idea you think you're above them. And trust me, no one's above a yak in a bad mood. You help a child tie up a yak now. She loops the rope quickly, pats the animal's flank, and offers it a chunk of salty lichen. The yak grunts its approval. You ask how she knows it's satisfied. She shrugs. You just feel it. Out here, there are no manuals, just memory and instinct. Even the layout of the camp is influenced by animals. Jairs are spaced so that the herds can rest near their owners without trampling cooking pots. Water sources are chosen with livestock in mind. The morning routine starts with milking. The evening lullaby? Usually a barking dog chasing a goat into the correct direction. And here's a little-known fact. Some families paint or decorate their animal gear, bright colors, woven patterns, little bells, so that the animals themselves become walking, grazing artwork. A camel isn't just a beast of burden. It's part of the aesthetic. As the day winds down and the animals settle into sleep, their breathing becomes a kind of soundtrack. You lie down on a thick wool rug, the walls of the ger glowing softly with lamplight, and realize you're surrounded by more than people. You're part of a herd. A massive, complex, four-hoofed, two-humped, dung-powered architectural collective. And when the wind howls tonight, it won't just be the walls keeping you safe. It'll be the sheep, the goats, the yaks and camels and horses. Every strand of felt, every strap of rope, every cup of milk, they all trace back to hooves in the grass and hearts that beat with a calm, animal rhythm. You're elbow deep in a bundle of fraying leather straps, trying to look useful while an elderly woman corrects your knots with one swift flick of the wrist. Her hands move faster than your thoughts. Her eyes, sharp beneath the folds of sunburned skin, miss nothing. She isn't the cook. She isn't waiting on orders. She's the boss. And out here, she's not an exception, she's the rule. Mongol women don't sit quietly in corners. They command the home, run the camp, make the cheese, herd the livestock, teach the kids, manage the money, and when necessary, negotiate treaties with the poise of diplomats and the glare of battle-hardened generals. If the yurt is a world, then the woman is the axis around which it spins. Historians agree that Mongol women held more autonomy and influence than their counterparts in many other medieval societies. They could own property, initiate divorce, ride into battle, and lead clans when the men were off conquering things. One of Genghis Khan's daughters even commanded entire regions of his empire, ruling with a mix of fear, brilliance, and an alleged fondness for poisoning rivals who underestimated her. Fun at parties, no doubt. You help hoist a saddle onto a pony. A woman, not much taller than the saddle itself, nods in approval and moves on, now tying a sack of flour with one hand while bouncing a baby on her hip with the other. No drama, just efficiency. Here's something quirky. When a young couple marries, the bride traditionally brings a dowry that includes her own GER. Not just the structure, but the skills to fold, carry, rebuild, and maintain it. Her yurt becomes her domain, a symbol of both her independence and her responsibility. Some even paint their crown rings or embroider the felt door flaps with personal patterns, marking their homes like signatures across the steppe. You step inside one such ger now. The space is immaculate. Bowls stacked perfectly. Dairy tools gleaming. A curtain sectioning off the sleeping area. Everything has a place, and the rhythm of daily life flows through this woman's hands like wind through grass. She doesn't command loudly, she doesn't need to. Her authority is woven into every thread, every movement. There's a myth, often half-jokingly repeated, that you can gauge the strength of a family by the tightness of their felt walls. Loose felts? Sloppy rope work? Someone's not paying attention, and it's usually not the man. Scholars still discuss whether this domestic power extended into formal politics. In many cases, it did. While Genghis Khan and his sons campaigned across Asia, it was their wives, mothers, and daughters who governed at home, collecting taxes, managing vassals, even deciding succession when things got dicey. They weren't figureheads. They were operational managers of a rolling empire. And in daily life, the division of labor wasn't a hierarchy, it was a partnership. Men rode, hunted, fought. Women made sure they had something to come back to, and often kept the camp alive during their absence. If a man returned without his wife's saddle girth tied just right, he might hear about it for days. You're invited to dinner. A woman ladles out thick stew, motions for you to sit, and launches into a story about the time she chased off a wolf with a ladle. She gestures, pantomimes the swing, reenacts the snarl. The whole girl laughs. You believe her. Of course you do. Later, by the fire, a girl practices her rope tying on your boot. Her grandmother watches silently, only interrupting to nod when the nod is finally right. These aren't hobbies. These are skills, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, until they become muscle memory, until they're instinct. As the night deepens and the stars emerge like scattered coins across the sky, you realize something profound. Out here, power doesn't shout. It doesn't sit on thrones. It stands barefoot in the dust, hands full of milk buckets, and eyes full of sky. It knows where every pole goes, when the wind will shift, and how to fold a home before sunrise. And most of the time, it wears a braid and walks past you with a look that says, "Are you done sitting, or do I have to tie your boots for you too?" You're awake too early, again, blinking at the inside of the felt ceiling and wondering why your mouth tastes faintly of goat. Then it hits you, fermented mare's milk. Again. But there's something else. A sharp, sour tang in the air. A sound of sloshing outside. A girl giggling. You step outside the gur and nearly slip on a wet stone. It's bath day. Now, let's be clear, bath is a generous word. You're not walking into a marble-tiled steam room. There's no cucumber water, no fluffy towels. What you do get is a basin, a rough cloth, a chunk of soap so pungent it might also double as bear repellent, and the enthusiastic encouragement of people who take hygiene seriously, even in the middle of nowhere. Contrary to the myths, Mongol nomads were not filthy. They were just practical. Cleanliness wasn't cosmetic, it was survival. You can't let wounds fester or let milk tools crust over. You can't afford lice infestations when your hat is your heater. So they bathed, cleaned, scoured pots with ash, boiled water when they could, and yes, washed their hair with things you probably wouldn't. Historians agree that personal hygiene in nomadic Mongolia was sophisticated, considering the conditions. Water was precious, so they got creative. Women sometimes rinsed their hair with fermented dairy. It left a scent not unlike sour cream, but it did the job. Men used rough cloths and ashes to scrub down. Saunas, banya, were built in winter camps by burying heated stones under tents and tossing water over them for steam. You sat, you sweated, you scrubbed, you prayed the goat didn't knock the tent over mid-scrub. You crouch now beside a teenage boy boiling a pot of water. He hands you a bar of soap made from rendered sheep fat and herbs. You nod in solemn appreciation, then lather up with the ferocity of someone who's worn the same socks 3 days in a row. You smell vaguely minty afterward. Or maybe that's the grass. Here's a quirky detail. Some families believe washing your entire body on a Tuesday brings bad luck. Others reserve specific days for washing only your hair or your hands. There are even whispered tales of a woman who lost her prized yak after bathing on the wrong day. Coincidence? Maybe. But no one's testing it. Laundry is a communal event. You walk over to a rope strung between two yak horns where shirts and trousers flap in the breeze like awkward flags. A woman is scrubbing socks in a wooden bucket with ash and snowmelt, humming a song with no discernible melody but great enthusiasm. When she sees your expression, she grins and splashes you. It's not a threat. It's a welcome. Inside the chairs, cleanliness continues. Bowls are wiped with hot milk to kill bacteria. Wooden ladles are scrubbed with salt. Blankets are shaken, rugs beaten, and crumbs offered to the chickens or whatever dog happens to be nearby with optimistic eyes. And the smell? You expected something awful. But it's not. It's earthy, musky, smoky, but never overpowering. It smells like people who live with animals, wind, and fire. Like wool warmed by skin. Like tea, dust, and the faint, persistent note of pine soap used more for nostalgia than effectiveness. There's even something comforting in the way cleanliness happens here. Not rushed, not perfectionist, just ritual. No one's bleaching their gur into a sterile cube. But no one's ignoring the mold in the milk barrel either. You do what needs doing, when it needs doing, and you trust that wind, time, and ash will handle the rest. You finish your scrub. Someone offers you a change of clothes, a spare shirt and trousers slightly too big but blessedly dry. You feel renewed, almost civilized, until a goat bumps into you again. It's fine. You're used to it now. It's part of the charm. And as you sit, wrapped in cleanish layers, sipping tea and letting your fingers thaw, you realize that out here, hygiene isn't about vanity. It's about respect. Respect for the body that carries you, for the space that shelters you, for the animals that provide, and for the wind that carries away the old. You may not have shaved in days, but you've never felt more alive, more refreshed, more in step with a world that scrubs itself clean, not with hot showers and scented candles, but with snow, steam, and the quiet rhythm of a morning well spent. You're lying on your back in the grass, arms behind your head, eyes closed as the wind slides across your skin like a lullaby. And then, you hear it. Not a voice. Not a tune. Something deeper. A layered, resonant tone that seems to come from both the earth and the sky. You sit up. Someone is singing. But not just singing, throat singing. It starts low, a vibrating hum like the purr of the steppe itself. Then a second tone splits off from the first, clear, high, and floating. You turn toward the sound and find a man perched on a rock, motionless except for the subtle twitch of his jaw. His eyes are half closed, and he's producing 2 notes at once. Maybe 3. It sounds like a didgeridoo in conversation with a flute. It's not music. It's a trance. This is kumai, the ancient Mongol art of overtone singing. A vocal technique that requires years to master and a liver strong enough to handle the airag usually served afterward. The singer controls both pitch and resonance, shaping his throat and mouth to highlight natural harmonics. And no, it's not a trick. It's anatomy, focus, and a kind of spiritual muscle memory passed from teacher to apprentice. Historians still argue about where throat singing originated, Mongolia, Tuva, Siberia? But Mongolia stakes a strong claim. Here, kumai is more than performance. It's a conversation with the wind, the ancestors, the animals. It's how you tell the mountains you're listening. You lie back down. The sound continues, slow and steady. You can feel it in your chest, like a second heartbeat. It's oddly hypnotic. Even the animals seem quieter. Later, back at camp, the music takes another form. Someone pulls out a morinkur, the horsehead fiddle. 2 strings, a boxy wooden body, and a carved horse head rising from the neck. The sound is mournful, elegant, and impossibly vast, like the echo of a farewell shouted across a canyon. You're told that every part of the morinkur is symbolic. The strings are made of horsehair, one for the stallion, one for the mare. The horsehead isn't just decoration. It's homage. Mongols believe horses carry the soul across the sky after death, and the music of the fiddle keeps that memory alive. Play it right, and it weeps. Play it wrong, and it complains like a tired goat. Here's a quirky belief. Some say the morinkur can calm wild animals, or even control the weather. There's a legend of a herder who played his fiddle during a sandstorm, and the wind stopped just long enough for him to bring the herd home. Coincidence? Maybe. But you'd rather not test it unarmed. As the evening unfolds, music ripples across the camp. Children hum, women sing softly while milking goats, and the elders join in with low chants that sound like thunder beneath the hills. It's not formal. There are no instruments beyond what they've carried for generations. But it's rich, textured, and endless. You find yourself humming too. A simple tune, picked up from the rider beside you. No one laughs. No one stops you. Here, music isn't performance, it's presence. A shared vibration in the chest. A kind of sonic glue binding the community to its landscape, its history, and each other. A boy with a handmade flute joins in. His notes are clumsy, sure. But the smile on his face, the way the wind carries his melody across the dry grass, makes it beautiful. Someone offers you a drum, just a hide stretched over a hollow log. You try a beat. It's off. But it holds. They nod, and the rhythm moves forward. And in that moment, you realize something soft but powerful. The Mongol Nomads didn't just conquer the world with bows and horses. They did it with song. With stories sung into the wind, Harmonies born in the throat, fiddles carved in love and mourning. Because in a life built around motion, you can't always carry books, scrolls, paintings. But you can carry songs. In your lungs, on your tongue, in your bones. And tonight, as the last note of throat song fades into the sky, you fall asleep with the hum still buzzing in your chest, like a lullaby from the land itself. You're reaching for a ladle when a woman gently stops your hand, not with words, but with a look. She nods toward a curtain drawn across the back of the GR. You hadn't noticed it before. A simple felt partition, embroidered with quiet patterns, separating the visible from the sacred. You step back instinctively, as if the air itself told you, that's not your place. Inside every Mongol yurt is a world. But not all of that world is meant to be seen. The layout of the gur follows an unwritten map, one passed down through generations like a soft-spoken law. You've been sleeping near the entrance, lounging beside the fire, wandering around the hearth. But now you're learning about the invisible boundaries that shape this circular life, lines of respect, custom, and deep, quiet meaning. The curtain you saw? That's often referred to as the Zentalon Cook, or sacred sign of the GR. It shields the sleeping quarters, the family altar, and sometimes even objects of ancestral reverence. Behind it, you might find relics, scrolls, old family garments, or bone fragments carefully wrapped in fabric. It's not off-limits because it's secret, it's off-limits because it's honored. Historians still debate the symbolic arrangement of the GR. Some believe it maps the cosmos itself, the center as the hearth, sun, the walls as the sky, the sacred rear as the realm of ancestors. Others say it's more practical, east for sunrise and daily activity, west for men's tools and hunting gear, north for respect, rest, and family pride. Maybe it's both. Probably it is. And here's a quirky little tradition. If you knock over an object near the altar, you're expected to touch your forehead to it 3 times and whisper an apology. It doesn't matter if it was an accident. The spirits don't care. They care that you notice. You sit now on the eastern side of the gur, where food is prepared and tools are stored. Women usually work here, cooking, crafting, repairing. The western side? That's for men's gear, saddles, weapons, and boots. If a man tosses his boots on the wrong side, he might get a broom handle to the shin, nicely, but firmly. There's a natural order to all this. When guests arrive, they sit to the west of the door. If the host is someone of standing, they sit at the back, near the sacred zone, elevated slightly on rugs. No one is told where to sit. They just know. You're offered a seat near the hearth. Not at the center. Not in the sacred rear. Somewhere balanced, honored, but humbly. One of the children pulls aside the curtain slightly to show you a glimpse of what's behind. A small wooden table with blue scarves, a brass statue of the Buddha, and a faded photo of a man with sharp cheekbones and sad eyes. The child whispers, "This is my great-grandfather. He built this gur." You bow slightly without thinking. That's the point. These spaces train the body to remember respect. No need for rules when the space itself teaches you how to move, how to sit, how to listen. You notice something else now, how the ceiling crown, the tuno, is always left clear. No one hangs laundry from it, stores bags on it, or jokes beneath it. It's not just for ventilation. It's the symbolic eye of the sky, the place where smoke rises and blessings fall. Even babies are held up toward it after birth, their first breath shared with the sun. Later that evening, a man steps into the gur and immediately removes his hat. He sets a crown down near the entrance, respectfully. Hats with feathers are placed feather side up. Knives are laid blade inward, away from the sleeping side. Cups are handed with the right hand, palm open. Each gesture feels small, but together, they form a language. You start to move differently. Slower. More deliberately. You sit with your back to the door, but never with your feet stretched toward the altar. You stop yourself from resting an elbow on the hearth's rim. These are quiet changes, born not from fear but from care. And tonight, as the lamps are dimmed and the curtain drawn fully closed, you understand something new. A home isn't sacred because of what it holds. It's sacred because of how we move through it. How we fold the felt. How we whisper near the fire. How we remember what's behind the curtain even when we can't see it. You blink at the weight in your hands, a brick. Not of clay or stone, but of pressed tea. It's rough, dark, and smells faintly like a forest floor. Someone nods approvingly and exchanges it for a fleece you just helped share this morning. No receipt. No haggling. No fuss. Just a nod, a shared history, and the silent understanding that trade out here isn't about wealth. It's about rhythm. Welcome to the bustling, low-decibel world of nomadic commerce. There are no buildings. No market stalls. Just a few carts arranged in a semicircle, some rugs laid flat with wares displayed, and people moving like ants with quiet purpose. You walk through, stunned at what counts as currency: bricks of tea, lengths of rope, saddle blankets, silver earrings, fermented milk in sealed leather pouches, dried mushrooms, even yak butter carved into tiny swirls like an offering to the gods of cholesterol. Historians still puzzle over the sophistication of these informal economies. Mongols didn't rely on coins, though they had them. They preferred barter, and they traded far, sometimes absurdly far. Goods moved from China to Hungary to India not just on the backs of caravans but through the soft-spoken diplomacy of yurt-side deals like the one you just witnessed. And here's a quirky custom: salt, a vital trade item, was once considered so valuable that entire herds were exchanged for a few sacks. Not just because it preserved meat, but because it flavored the eternal tea. The joke went, if your tea isn't salty enough, either you've lost your taste or your worth. You stop beside a woman selling dried cheese balls, airwool, each the size of a coin and approximately as chewable as one. You try to trade your spare pair of wool socks. She squints at them, picks them up, sniffs them. You try not to die of embarrassment, then nods and pours a handful of cheese into your bag. Deal. A man nearby offers polished horse hooves shaped into bowls. Another deals in copper belt buckles, etched with swirls that look like clouds trapped in metal. Children run past carrying sacks of barley. An elder squats beside a crate of pickled vegetables sealed in glass jars wrapped in felt, just in case. Pickles are rare out here. Worth their weight in stories. Some traders are locals, herders moving between pastures, restocking rope or picking up a new kettle. Others have traveled from far-off somes, bringing honey, silk, even knockoff wristwatches wrapped in plastic. You see one glinting with a gold face reading Rolex. Shh. Close enough. No one shouts. No one sells. It's not a marketplace in the Western sense. It's more like a gathering, a shared breath between migrations. You pass a man selling books, yes, books, with yellowed pages in handwritten marginalia. You spot a tattered novel, translated into Mongolian from Russian, originally French. The world has passed through many hands to get here. And yet, some of the most valuable trades aren't physical at all. One herder offers a song in exchange for a night's lodging. Another shares a weather pattern rumor for a packet of tea. Stories are currency. So are jokes. So is the news of births, deaths, broken carts, and upcoming festivals. It all flows through this makeshift market like smoke from 100 hearths. You end up trading a carved spoon you didn't even know you had for a pair of wool-lined mittens. Then, after a sheepish smile, you offer a sketch you made of the Gurkamp, a rough pencil drawing on a scrap of paper. A woman gasps. She offers you a chunk of pressed fruit and insists you take a leather strap too. You try to protest. She waves you off. That's a good drawing, she says. As the sun dips low, the traders begin to pack. No one yells closing time. They just start to vanish, one by one, like yurts on the wind. Goods are bundled. Ponies hitched. Carpets rolled. You realize this wasn't just about objects. It was about connection. The silent web of exchange that ties herder to herder, clan to clan, across a land too big for fences and too open for walls. And as you tuck your mittened hands into your sleeves and head back toward your host family's gur, you feel it, the pulse of a people who don't trade for profit, but for preservation. For the next journey. For the chance to meet again at the next temporary market on the next stretch of infinite grass. You squint into the sun, shielding your eyes as a solar panel glints from atop a nearby GER. It looks out of place for a split second, like someone balanced a piece of the future on top of the past. But then a child runs past, cradling a smartphone playing a folk song, and you realize, this isn't contradiction. It's continuity. Modern Mongolia hasn't replaced the nomadic life, it's blended with it. You're watching someone download weather reports from a satellite while their sheepdog herds a flock on instinct alone. The felt walls still stand. The hearth still burns. But now the tea kettle might sit beside a charging cable. Historians still argue whether the rise of technology marks the beginning of the end for true nomadism. But step into a modern herder's life, and you'll see something far subtler happening. The lifestyle hasn't vanished, it's adapted. Like a yurt bending in the wind, these families lean toward modern tools without losing their roots. You follow a young woman as she milks a goat one-handed while texting her cousin in the next home over. She shows you her phone, cracked and dusty. It's loaded with veterinary manuals, a weather app, and a playlist of throat-singing remixes. Her solar charger is taped together with a strip of sheep leather. It works just fine. Nearby, a teenager adjusts a satellite dish outside his family's gur, trying to find the signal that'll let them watch last night's wrestling match. Wrestling is still one of Mongolia's 3 manly skills, along with horse racing and archery. But now it's broadcast in HD, at least, when the yak doesn't knock the dish out of alignment. Here's a quirky but true detail: some herders mount their solar panels on broomsticks, wedged between yak horns, to keep them above snowdrifts and curious goats. Others paint their phone numbers on their horses, in case one wanders into someone else's pasture. Lost horse? Just call. The government supports this balance too. Many nomads receive mobile banking services, health advice, and even education via roaming internet units. Some kids attend online school from the shade of a gur, balancing algebra with afternoon milking chores. And yet, when school breaks, they race ponies across the plains like it's 1225 all over again. You visit a family who just bought their first electric butter churn. The grandmother eyes it suspiciously, arms folded. It doesn't sing like the old one, she mutters. But it finishes a churn in half the time. She nods once, approvingly, then walks away to hang prayer scarves at the oval like she's always done. And here's the surprising thing: the gur itself hasn't changed much. Sure, you might see a plastic tarp over the roof, a metal stovepipe with a bend in it, or curtains stitched from repurposed shopping bags. But the bones are the same: kind of frame, felt walls, sacred fire at the center. The rhythm remains. You step inside one such modern gur and see a flat-screen TV perched beside the altar, a laptop charging by the door. The teenager inside is practicing archery form with a toy bow and watching a tutorial on YouTube. Outside, his mother hangs cheese to dry on the same rope her grandmother used. It's surreal. It's beautiful. It works. People often think modernity kills tradition. But here, it folds into it. Technology doesn't erase the wind. It helps predict it. It doesn't replace the horse. It helps track its health. And if a goat gives birth at 3 a.m. in a snowstorm, there's a flashlight app for that. As night falls, you scroll through photos you've taken: sunsets over jars, children riding in packs, a camel chewing beside a solar panel. You show them to your host, who laughs, points, and then snaps a photo of you with his smartphone. "For my Facebook," he says. Later, by firelight, someone plays music from a Bluetooth speaker. It's a remix of traditional Morinkur and electronic beats. The older folks grumble. The teenagers sway. And the youngest child, barely 2, claps along. And you think, if the steppe could speak, it might say what the felt walls have always known, that survival isn't about freezing time. It's about folding new things into old rhythms. About finding signal in the silence. You hold one end of a thick felt wall while 3 others begin to roll it in tight, practiced movements. This is it, the last day in this place, the last sunrise over this patch of flattened grass, the last time this particular circle of wool and wood will rise here. The gur is coming down. Again. It doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like breathing out. A slow exhale after holding shape for weeks, maybe months. There's no panic. No urgency. Just movement. Graceful, rhythmic, inevitable. This isn't demolition. It's a folding away of memories, a careful unwinding of space. First, the rugs are rolled. Then the bedding bundled. The altar is packed with reverence, each kadog scarf folded, each photo wrapped, each icon kissed or bowed to before it's tucked safely in a satchel. The hearth is swept clean. Ashes scattered downwind. The tuno, the circular crown, is lowered like a final sun. Historians often romanticize this moment, this departure, but to the people living it, it's just part of the pattern. They say goodbye not with tears, but with tidy knots and checked ropes. A woman hums a tune. A boy loops a rope through the wall lattice with one hand while drinking tea with the other. The wind whistles low, gentle, like it knows not to interrupt. You remember how it all went up, the precision, the tension, the way the walls leaned inward as if to say yes, we remember how to hold you. Now they lean outward, relaxing back into bundles, their job done. For now. Here's a quirky final ritual. Some families leave behind a pebble where the hearth once was. Not as a marker, but as a memory. They say the land remembers. And when you return, the stone will still be there, waiting. Or it won't. And that means it's time to build somewhere new. You help hoist the final roll of felt onto the cart. It's heavy, but not unbearable. The kind of weight that feels earned. Like carrying an old friend piggyback. Someone chuckles and tosses you a length of rope. You tie it without being told. Your fingers remember now. The camp disappears slowly. A cooking pot here. A lone stool. A forgotten boot. Then even those are gathered, strapped, stored. And the grass underneath? It springs back. It's not pristine, but it heals quickly. As if the land, like the people, knows how to let go. And then the animals are gathered. The horses snort. The goats complain. The camels, as usual, look unimpressed. The carts creak into motion. One by one, the jares vanish, pulled into motion, wheels groaning softly over hard ground. You ride with them. Not leading. Not following. Just with. The sun rises fully now, casting gold across the hills. The wind pushes at your back. The road isn't marked. There is no map. But there's certainty anyway. The next pasture is out there. And when you find it, the girl will rise again. Just like it always has. Because the secret is this: nothing is permanent. But everything is remembered. The warmth of the hearth. The weight of the felt. The sound of the wind pushing through a half-open crown ring. You don't need to build something forever to have it stay with you. You just need to fold it carefully. With love. With intent. And tonight, on a new stretch of earth, under a different slice of sky, someone will light the fire again. They'll boil the tea. They'll sing to the horses. The felt will stretch. The walls will breathe. And home, once again, will unfold. The caravan fades into the hills now. The footsteps grow quiet. The sky softens into blue and gray in a hush that settles across the grass like a blanket. You're no longer holding ropes or tying bundles. Just sitting. Breathing. The yurt is gone, but the warmth still lingers. The scent of tea and smoke. The rhythm of hoofbeats. The memory of laughter drifting through felt walls. You can still feel the soft texture of wool under your fingers, the gentle weight of community folding and unfolding around you like a song passed down. Let your breath match the wind now. Slow, easy. Let it carry away the last bits of dust, the echoes of old songs, the quiet clatter of bowls packed and unpacked. Everything that matters has gone with you. Nothing is lost. In the distance, a dog barks once, then curls beside a saddle. A horse shakes its mane and settles into rhythm. Somewhere, a child giggles at a joke told by a grandparent who's folded and unfolded this life more times than they can count. You are not in a museum. You're not trapped in history. You're riding with it. Sleeping in it. Dreaming in it. The Mongol is not a relic. It's a living, breathing poem, folded in wool, sung in wind, lit by fire. So rest now. Let the stars rise over the open land in your mind. Let the crown ring above you frame the night sky. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of the circle.